today. So if for any reason you do not want us to share your email and your name with the larger group, please email admin@cinemahtx.org. admin@cinemahtx.org. We will not put you on the list. But again, in terms of the real goal of this is that we're hoping that folks will come out of this and kind of meet on their own and build on their own and start building some connections and structure to build towards a greater Black Texas filmmaking ecosystem. All right, so that said, I'm gonna pass the mic on to Leslie Fields-Cruz, the incredible Executive Director of Black Public Media, to speak a little bit about this.
Hi, thank you so much, Jessica. What a wonderful intro. And welcome again. Yes, I want to say welcome to everybody for the Black Media Story Summit Texas Part 2. We at Black Public Media, for those of you who didn't attend last year and are coming here for the first time, Black Public Media is a national organization and we support independent Black media makers creating stories about the Black experience. Many of the programs that we support are broadcast on public television, PBS. We also have our own series, Afropop, The Ultimate Cultural Exchange, that will premiere this year in April on World Channel. But I'm actually so excited about this particular Story Summit and its focus on emerging media. In 2018, and when we launched our first National Black Media Story Summit, we intentionally included emerging media makers to talk about the work that they were doing and also to share some of the challenges that they face. And at that point, we had made a commitment that we were going to find ways to support producers who were either working in emerging media, working with VR, XR content, and or help our producers that we've worked with in the past if they want to begin to do some work in VR, that we would find ways to support. So I am happy to have Michele and Joe talk to you all today. Michele and Joe, we have funded many of their programs from American Promise, Haiti One Day. Oh my goodness, what? I'm so bad with titles. I forget. So I'm like, hey, the Haiti Project, which you'll hear about today. And again, we've also are supporting Changing Same. And what I will tell all of you who are makers right now today, especially if you're starting out, but even if you've been in the game, Michele and Joe are the masters of, identifying how to use which platform is going to tell the best story. They have never been held back by the change in the technology. They have always found new ways to tell their stories and use these new platforms. And I'm always excited about the work that they create and the work that they push out. And I'm also grateful that they are mentors for our 360 incubator program. And they were the inaugural recipients of our Pitch Black Award Trailblazers. So I'm gonna stop talking and I'll hand it over to Erica of Austin Film Society. Erica, I've known for a while. And again, another partner for the Black Media Story Summit Texas. Thank you again so much for having the summit again and partnering with Black Public Media. There you go.
Hey, hi everyone. Thank you, Jessica and Leslie. My name is Erica DiPrini-Sugars. I'm the Director of Programs for the Austin Film Society. I am located in Austin, original lands of the Tonkawa and Comanche people. After such a trying year, I think we are so grateful, we at AFS are so grateful to provide opportunities for Texas makers to join in community with each other, and we hope that we can continue to do so in the future. So just a quick hello, and I'm looking forward to these conversations. Back to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Erica and Leslie. So glad that we're able to do it with you guys. All right, so I'm just gonna zip through this really quickly. You guys are in for a treat. This is the main event. This is the workshop. This is what it's all about. Michele Stephenson is a filmmaker, artist, author who pulls from her Panamanian and Haitian roots to think radically about storytelling and disrupting the imaginary and nonfiction spaces. She tells compelling, deeply personal stories that are created by, for, and about communities of color that reimagine and provoke. Her feature documentary, American Promise, was nominated for 3 Emmys and won the Jury Prize at Sundance. She is a Guggenheim Fellow and a creative capital artist. Joe Brewster. Joe Brewster is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist who uses his training in approaching the social issues he tackles. His film, American Promise, was nominated for 3 Emmys and won the Special Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. So without further ado, Michele and Joe, please take it away.
Thank you. Hello.
Good morning. Is it snowing in Texas? Somebody wave their hand if it is. Oh, no, I'm jealous. We are coming to you live from Brooklyn, and what we like to do today is to tell you how grateful we are being here. That for us is really an honor to speak to Black filmmakers, particularly filmmakers from my ancestral homeland, which would be Texas. My father's father and his father's father's father were raised there in East Texas, and I feel like I'm coming home. What we're going to do today is a few things. We're going to basically tell you about who we are, why we do what we do, and then we're going to share our process. I hope that's helpful to you, because part of our process is sharing as much as possible and collaborating so that we're not out there alone doing the work.
And in that process, we're going to share with you the work that we did with the Changing Same that's being featured at Sundance today. A couple of things I just wanted to kind of set straight before maybe we go to our PowerPoint is I just want to shout out to Black Public Media, just give a little bit of space to acknowledge in terms of emerging media that Black Public Media has always been at the forefront of this. And I feel like we need to make sure that our history is properly sort of documented, repeated, and told. Back in the early 2000s, Jackie Jones was doing these emerging media summits before 2010, before there was a Facebook even, and giving space to Black people, Black communities to think about ways of telling stories beyond the 2D space. And one of those projects, actually, I actually forgot, Leslie, that Haiti One Day, One Destiny was during the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, where we actually did a multimedia project back then. So I just wanted to set that record straight that we are here and we are part of this emerging process and also pioneers in the space. Is it Max who is supposed to put the PowerPoint for us? The PDF?
That's
great, awesome. Thank you. You can go to the next slide, I think. Joe do we want to talk a little bit, Joe, about the birth of Rada Studio before we go to our personal?
No, let's talk about the birth of Michele Stephenson.
Go to the next slide. So just quickly, that's me at 9 years old. We recently arrived to Canada. My family is emigrated from Haiti. I was born in Haiti. My dad is Haitian. My mom is Panamanian. My dad is there behind with some of my cousins and uncles. Recently arrived. We were exilees from a dictatorship, a brutal dictatorship where our families had to flee. And so, and understanding maybe the history a little bit of the Americas, I am sort of the outgrowth of this violent history of colonialism, racial caste system, slavery, and the genocide against indigenous peoples, and have felt it very strongly growing up, especially around issues of colorism and how we navigated that both within our family, but also arriving in North America, being directly confronted with the racism against, Black immigrants. I experienced that firsthand, certainly virtually through my parents and what they had to go through both around housing and employment, but also, you know, growing up in school as well. So that kind of is that baggage brought me really to storytelling through a long circuitous way that I won't get into. But what is pushing me to story is really this, this need to heal. This need to heal from not just my personal past and experiences that are both intersectional around patriarchy and racial caste system, but also the ancestral baggage, you know, the epigenetics that sort of come out in some of my more, you know, unconscious behavior consciously of folks around me. And storytelling I have found to be a tool that helps that process, both for me internally, understanding that I am my first audience, but also finding commonality with others in that similar lived experience. So I'm gonna leave it there. Next slide, Joe.
So I can't see everyone, but you can see me. And what I really want to make a strong case for, and you heard over and over, storytelling is personal. It's personal in terms of the gaze of the people watching the story or listening to the story, and it's personal in terms of which story I decide to tell you. And so we do not skimp on the personal. That's me. I am maybe 9 years old. I am wearing my Sunday best. I didn't know until I look at that's me on the left. I didn't know until I look at that photograph many years later that that's a hand-me-down suit that my mother reimagined. But what I do know is that I was happy, and that was a form of bliss. And whatever you hear about South Central Los Angeles, that's what South Central Los Angeles is for me. What I do know is that I encountered a sort of dissonance, a psychological dissonance in terms of what I was seeing, who had the wealth, who was on television, who got the prize, who was asked to stand up and speak in class. And that bothered me. It bothered me so much that at the age of 10, I wrote Walt Disney. And I said to Walt, and first of all, that stamp cost about a nickel, and that nickel was hard to raise back in the day. But I sent a letter to Walt Disney and I said, please put the Black LA that I know on television. Guess what? He never returned my letter. And I decided, 10, 11, that I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to right that wrong. Try to be part of what I thought was an amazing history, an amazing community. But this is what I learned. Not only did they not allow me to be on television, not only did people that look like me didn't get a chance to get the girl or touch the toy, but they began to distort the history that I knew, which was a lot of Black love and triumph and trials and tribulation and suffering. But the Black love never appeared in the public arena. So that is my trajectory to storytelling. I decided to become a physician. I was recruited. I went to medical school and I realized if I were going to stay true to my goal of making this a better world, a better way for me was to tell stories. And that brings us not to the next slide.
Let's go to the next slide. Just one more point. Joe and I are not just creative partners, but we're also life partners. And we have 2 sons. together. The oldest one, Idris, I'm not sure how many people, can you put how many people have actually seen American Promise, our documentary film? Maybe not that many because it came out in 2013 and most of you are probably my oldest son's age. But American Promise is a very personal film. And it's about the here and the now in some ways, but it's also about what we inherit as a family around parenting, as well as it's a 13-year journey that looks at our son's experience through the educational system in New York City. Maybe we can show the trailer now. Do you want to add something, Joe? I'm trying to be conscientious of Jessica's time for us.
Well, we've already said that we're going to spend time developing before we get to the media.
I think we need the sound.
Idris is extremely bright.
Shayon's creativity is exceptional.
What we teach in Dalton is to teach them they have a voice.
It's my best school and I love it there. I would like to be a professional basketball player when I grow up.
I want Shayon to be comfortable around white folks because I think even at this point, I am not comfortable around white folks.
How do you feel about being one of the few black kids there? Is that ever an issue?
No, it's never an issue.
Good try, Idris!
Dalton will open doors for him for the rest of his life. You see the inauguration? At one point, I was thinking what we're doing could pay off in something like this. Not that I want you to be the president of the United States.
I'm not going really good in school. I get really frustrated. My basketball team, they said, oh, you talk like a white boy.
They told us that our son is a hard-to-manage guy. They don't know him.
There's a cultural disconnect between independent schools and African-American boys, and the question is why?
I hate school. It's bad. It's hard.
The problem is focusing in class.
After you leave Dalton, where do you go?
I really don't want to leave.
I don't think it was, frankly, a good match for him.
I'd be better off if I was white. Isn't that true? This is unacceptable.
Sit up!
It's laziness.
Something is wrong with my child.
People would say, wow, you're controlling his entire life. But I think we weren't controlling enough.
Dad is not giving up on you. I'm hard because I want you to be a better man than I am.
I think I'm ready for college. I can't take life for granted.
This feels so right. Just calling my name.
There's nothing you can't do in this world. We back you up all the way.
Triumph Award goes to Shay Summers. This is just the beginning.
Even through all the struggles, I feel like I'm going places.
You should be proud.
So we're going to move a little quicker, more quickly through these slides, but let's go to the next slide. And I think we've already articulated this. I do not exist if my story does not exist. And I like to make that point to Texas filmmakers. If you ask a foreigner, what do they know? They're gonna tell you about a guy in a white hat. They're not gonna tell you about Black Texas. Black Texas is a rich culture. And the question is, are you going to take up the mantle and describe that culture? In American Promise, right? Nobody wanted to hear about a Black middle-class family from New York. Nobody would finance that. But when we put it on the screen, a personal story, there were lines around the block in 20 cities. There were families. There were 34 million people talking about that's my story. Well, that is your story too. And if you decide to tell a local story with personal and emotional resonance, it'll get the same response. Let's move to the next clip. We're jumping ahead because we have limited time. is a personal story that Michele chose to tell.
Yeah. But I do want to say the community is at the center and the core of our work. Community in terms of what is it reflected for our own personal interests, right? And like we said, the bandwagon for American Promise came towards the end of our process. And it wasn't from the support, we had always had support from the Black community, whether it was program officers and other BIPOC officers in foundations who understood the importance of the story that needed to be told. And ultimately the bandwagon came along. But the fact that we were focused on a story that we knew was important to us, and we knew there were others like us, is what gave us the fuel to continue and keep making the film. But not only that, develop a community engagement program that specifically addressed the needs that we wanted, like as parents, as Black parents, what would we have wanted to have as tools to help us in that process? And that fed a community engagement program that won many awards, and that continues. We have parents today that continue to reach out to us about navigating the school system for their children. And the same comes to this particular next film called Stateless. Right now, the screen is talking about elements of storytelling that we can get into later, about the importance of emotion, but also of character-driven pieces. A lot of our pieces really stick on character development, but it's also about creating voice that reflect our own sort of experiences. But Stateless too, it's like some people don't know about the question of Dominicans of Haitian descent and the anti-Black hatred that exists on the island. Specifically in the Dominican Republic against Dominicans of Haitian descent. But for me personally, it's a story that reflects not just my experience as someone born in Haiti and growing up with these stories of relationships between Dominicans and Haitians, but also as a Black immigrant to the United States and understanding how race plays into how we perceive migration and immigration and what that means, and what does citizenship even mean to our communities. So this was a little bit easier to get funding for. I think it's because a little bit of our track record. However, it is still a very specific story, but that has resonance beyond it because white supremacy is everywhere, right? And so this film is more about seeing it as a mirror as opposed to a window into another story. So you can play the trailer. Another element while he's putting that together is this is also, Joe and I started to think about history and past and present, and how do we make that present for us in the stories that we tell. And this is an initial experimentation with bringing in our ancestors into the story in a magical realist way that leads us to the changing same also. So this was sort of a practice run on a few elements around story in that way.
Play it.
Te quiero contar la historia de una niña que se llamaba Moraime. En una noche oscura de octubre, Moraime tuvo que esconderse. El dictador Trujillo decidió limpiar la raza y solucionar el llamado problema haitiano.
Aquí pensamos en los 100 pesos, los 500 pesos de ahora, pero no vemos cómo vamos a vivir 4 o 5 años después. Y en eso que hay que pensar. Los haitianos aquí, los dominicanos aquí, lo queremos aquí, lo queremos mucho.
República Dominicana, la tierra donde yo nací, la amo y la quiero. Y no voy a vivir bajo la indiferencia de que soy un extranjero cuando yo nací allí.
Si llego al Congreso, así como he venido hoy a pedir el voto, venir y sentarme con la gente de la 15, vamos a ver los problemas que hay aquí, por dónde lo vamos a encaminar.
Era la emisora FM 103.5. Bueno, en medio de
recibiendo amenazas. Me llamaron diciéndome que saben a qué hora sale mi hijo de la escuela.
De nosotros depende que esto cambie. Yo me siento orgullosa de ser una dominicana de ascendencia haitiana. La agenda de la ley puede romper los límites que nos dicen que nosotros no podemos atravesar.
So we're giving you a lot of video and a lot of stuff in a very short period of time. Oh, am I on, can you hear me?
Yes, you're not on mute.
So what we're gonna do is we're going to skip forward to the next trailer. But what we really wanna say is that we are committed to uplifting the Black experience, to dethroning white supremacy and anti-Blackness. And what we do it is in the intentional storytelling, focusing on emotion, character, and pretty pictures. So this particular piece came about after we went, we were invited by Skoll to deal with the subject of migration, slavery, and mass incarceration. And so what we wanted to do, if you go to the slide before, after this, is we wanted to use immersive media to allow us to look at 400 years of Black resistance to white supremacy. Now that's a hard thing to pitch, but it's VR was probably the only place we could do it. So we're gonna show you the trailer, and then we have a few minutes to talk before we go to breakout rooms. So the trailer is the one.
Well, there's a Q&A. There's a Q&A before the breakout.
The next. Oh, I'm sorry.
Stand back and watch for the closing doors.
Go full screen, please. Can you go full screen?
Oh, I can see you're curious. You want to enter?
We got a call. This call describes you perfectly. You don't have to come with us.
You fit the description. Black, wearing clothing. Shouldn't be surprised by this.
Listen, these are some serious charges. A Class D felony assault carries a 3 to 7 year sentence in this state.
I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm a free man.
What's it gonna be? Guilty or not guilty?
Maybe you can go to the next slide and we can just sit there to talk. Oh no, not that one, sorry. One after that? Yeah. Joe, you want to set up? So The Changing Same is a collaboration between our studio and Scatter, which is a volumetric filmmaking company based in Bushwick. And as Joe said, we had been invited by Skoll and Sundance to spend some time with the Equal Justice Initiative and Brian Stevenson's work in Alabama and across the South. And I think what stood out for us in his work topically is this idea that slavery never ended. It's just evolved into something different. And that resonates not just for here, but even if you look at stateless and the work in stateless and how slavery just seems there also to take a different shape. We decided to take this deep dive. We did a short film looking at the legacy of lynching in Mariana, Florida, as a result of our collaboration with EJI. And then we wanted to explore an immersive media space where we could collapse time, past and present, where it wouldn't be just watching history, it would be being a part of it, being in it. And VR was really the only space where that could happen, where we could kind of hit things on different levels emotionally. And so we embarked on this collaboration, and this VR piece is the result of it. And we're in episode 1 at Sundance. But for us, it's equally important, like for us to start thinking, which we're in the beginnings of, how we democratize that access. How do we make it about community also in the distribution? Joe, do you want to add a few more things about that?
Sure. I think as a emerging filmmaker, I think many times we want to do it all, but our process is to go to the best we can find and partner and learn, because for us, it's about craft. And so you'll find the people who are around 30 years later have a high level of craft, and that craft doesn't come from anywhere. It comes from partnerships. We also have a strong partnership ethic. We will partnership with anyone who can give back. And so, and we are not shy about that. We're not shy about the junior role, because whatever they give us, we own. And so what we were able to do was to give to that partnership. And we found that our stories, like all these other stories we want to tell, were very difficult. And so what I am cautioning is patience. So our white colleagues could have raised this money in a year. It took us 4 to get episode 1. But what we got is a level of craftsmanship, because we didn't waste that time. That's pretty unparalleled. We were able to invent new technology to tell this story. We were able to learn the ins and outs of volumetric filmmaking, the pluses and minuses. And so, as my grandfather from Houston would say, just like your grandfather or your parents, we made a way out of no way. And that's what we do. So next slide. Previous slide.
Oh yeah, we can go to that as well. These are some of these are actual grabs from the experience, but some of these are actually what our iterative sort of generative process was in the creativity. We have a character in The Changing Same called Harriet, who stands 13 feet tall when you're in the VR experience. And she's basically a force, an energy of our ancestors, and guides you as the user through this experience where time is collapsed, where you see the past and the present happening at the same time. So you can make these historical links and understand, I think it's Faulkner said, the past isn't even the past. It's today. That's not the exact quote, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Just 2 things I want to add, and maybe we'll open up just to make sure, is not only that, so, you know, this piece was very hard to fund at the beginning. We got a pushback from more commercial entities saying it wasn't commercial, saying that it was too tough, too difficult. Not something people wanted to experience, and even though we talked about it as a magical realist experience, that it would be dreamlike. And so, but again, from the very beginning, we've been building community. I know that Jessica talked about field building, but I think field building is community building, because it's with the communities that we build that follow the work that we do, and that we kind of, they nourish us, our community nourishes us, and we nourish our community. And being able to reinforce that along the way over the 10, 15, 5, 30 years, lifetime, is really, I think, the key to also our own sustenance, you know, our own sustenance, and knowing who we can call, you know, whether it's our peers or mentors in the community. The other thing that the issue of not having funding allowed us to do, Joe told us, it gave us time to really hone in the craft, but it gave us the time to realize our own vision. Yes, there were compromises, but ultimately it is our vision that is out there, and that we were unapologetic about, which some of our collaborators tell us you were very unapologetic about it, because we're not in this to make money. We're not in this to make money. If not, we would be doing something else. I think Raoul Peck speaks to that when with I Am Not Your Negro, where, you know, that took 10 years to make. And so I lost my train of thought. There was something else I wanted to say and I forgot. So.
Well, you said we're not in to make money, but I want you to know that if you want to make money, you can be a rock star. You have about 0 chance of that happening, or you can invest and process in community. Do I have another minute, Jessica, or not? So I'm going back to my father, who invested in the future. He was a preacher. He thought we were going to heaven. But when my father lost his job and had 4 kids in LA, it was the community that gave him work. And when we look for work, even during the pandemic, it is the community, primarily the Black filmmaking community, that gives us more work than we can handle. And so we invested in that. And what I am saying that if you start your career with that intention, I'm investing in partnerships and community. The #1 source of income for us for many years is the community calling us to talk about process. Interesting. And what I'm saying is that the future may be the light at the end of the tunnel, the glitter, the gold, but it's really investing in Texas, the people sitting next to you, creating craft, being patient, and creating a community that supports.
Yeah, maybe you can go to the next slide, Max. This sort of illustrates a little bit what Joe was saying. But 2 things I want to highlight. I just remembered what I was trying to say. But one, I mean, when I say we're not in it to make money, we absolutely want to get paid for sure. But what I meant is that it's not you know, it's not Wall Street in that sense. It's not, you know, the search for profit that will allow, you know, both of us have had day jobs actually throughout our career in filmmaking. The studio is starting to build more where we can work less in some of the other stuff that we do. I teach. Joe still practices psychiatry, but you know, the focus, of course, is on our studio. And the thing about Changing Same that I wanted to get back to, because, and it also actually happened with American Promise, that the fact that we took our time, that we didn't take no for an answer and just kept building with faith in the piece. The uprisings of 2020 happened, right? During the pandemic, the racial reckoning that continues, you know, through today. And then all of a sudden, we're, you know, the best candy in town, right? So there is a reason in some ways that, I mean, I don't want to get too spiritual about it, but there is a timing with this piece coming out and getting the love that it does get as a result of, you know, historical happenings, unprecedented, well, sort of historical happenings of 2020. And so this is the time, basically. We may have wanted to do it earlier, but this is probably the best time for it. And the same happened with American Promise. The whole issue of Black male achievement was in the zeitgeist when this film came out. And it allowed us to propel our story and build a momentum around the community that was already sort of talking about it, that allowed it to amplify. So what I'm saying is the patience also means that when it does happen will be the time, and there'll be other things intersecting at the right moment for it. So I think we sort of, oh, the art of contrarianism, that's the only, but let's open it up, I think, yeah?
Okay, all right. Yeah, we're gonna open it up now. Mike, you can put me on the screen. I just want to share a couple of things with everybody before we open it up. Thank you so much, Michele and Joe. That was incredible. I just want to really quickly encourage everybody that hasn't seen American Promise to check it out. It is so incredibly moving and powerful. And for anybody that missed it, I mean, a testament to their journey as parents and their commitment to their son Idris's education. Their son is part of another project, another virtual reality project in Sundance 2021. So it is just so satisfying to know that after watching this film about this incredible journey and really, really just documenting their commitment as parents and as Black parents. And yeah, so I just really want to encourage everybody that hasn't seen American Promise to check it out. And wow, the Changing Same trailer from your VR project that's currently in Sundance. So beautiful, so incredible. So we're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna move on. We're gonna open it because this is supposed to be interactive, right? So now we're gonna go into a general Q&A period with Michele and Joe for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to go into our breakout rooms after that. And that will be even more interactive in small groups. So the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna go to Tile on my view. And if you would like to be on view, on camera, and ask a question, please raise your hand. If you just want to have your question answered in the chat, put it in the chat. I'm going to just go back and forth. I'm going to look for hands. And then Mike Murphy, hello, Mike Murphy, who is our tech lead. Thank you so much, Mike. He's going to pull you up. If you raise your hand, you're going to be on camera, asking your question on camera. If you don't want to be on camera, just put your question in the chat. And I'll just go back and forth. We'll get as many questions as we can in the next 10 minutes before we go into breakout groups. But thank you, Michele and Joe, so much for that presentation. All right, so I'm going to gallery. So anybody that wants to,
I see Malcolm Farrell.
Malcolm, okay, let's get Malcolm's question. Mike, could you pull up Malcolm?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, thanks.
I'm good. So, as y'all can see, my name is Malcolm Farrell. I'm an actor. I was born in Brooklyn. It's ironic that y'all in Brooklyn, yeah, East Flatbush, and I was raised in Jersey. I'm actually living in Houston, and I've been acting for 10 years, and you guys were talking about your projects and the gaps of making it correct, and just following you guys on path and making sure that it's perfect. Timing is everything. I think we as creators, we know that. My thing is, what substantially, financially, and also creatively, what do you guys do in between those gaps, you know, between projects? I know obviously you guys are gathering things and getting like ideas. I know it's not going to just happen overnight, but I'm saying, you know, with creatives, we have these gaps in between our projects. So what do you guys do in between those times, knowing that it may take 4 years later, it'll come out and things like that?
Very good question. But I would say we don't have gaps. And so the question is, why would you have a gap? And I'm provocative, but at one point, my wife said, "Okay, I want to perfect my craft in documentary." So, because I had made 2 feature films, narrative, and she said, "I'm going to stop working. Can you go back to work while I work on this film that I'm doing in 5 continents, or 5 countries?" And I said, "Sure." But while she was making that film, I decided, let's pick up a camera and shoot our family. And it was low tech. It was a Panasonic 29p camera. That was American Promise. So while she was doing one project, we did low tech projects, many of them. And so right now, if we don't have work, we'll be doing cave drawings in the backyard. It's about We don't have a cave in Brooklyn, but what we do have is chalk. And so we're always thinking about ways and right now we've been in it for a while. So we have, and I'm not suggesting that you go there right away because it's difficult to learn how to juggle, but we have 5, 6, maybe 10 projects going on simultaneously. Relative levels of complication, but there's nothing stopping you. We as a people have been making art and expressing ourselves in so many forms since the beginning of time. There is no downtime. The only downtime is going to McDonald's, picking up the paycheck and coming home.
Yeah, I think there are two things here. One, I need to do a shout out at someone that I recognize who doesn't know me. I was series producer, and this will speak to your question. I was series producer on American Portrait, and I see Yake, who is the director of Romeo and Katrina. Nice to see you. So nice to see you, I directed the episode I Rise that came out, and Yake is in one of the stories with Christine, who is was the writer. So it's really nice to see you, and very excited and honored about your work, and looking to see the full musical.
Thank you.
So nice to see you. Nice to see you. As well. So speaking to that, so the thing is, I think this idea of mindset of gaps is probably, I would flip it the way Joe was saying. It's that it's all working towards some kind of end. Even if I'm out there, doing a 9 to 5, trying to, and which is the case because I don't come from, wealth, that's somehow feeding towards what I can create. The important thing is to figure out how do I, with that, still keep space to keep creating. And it means longer hours. It means longer days, right? But so we've both been, I'm a former attorney, so I practiced and made films, and then I stopped practicing. Joe was practicing in psychiatry and stopped sometimes while we were in American Promise. Now I teach and make film at the same time, teach in that space. But also more recently have been able to sort of do work for hire, either as producer or director for other projects, for commission projects. And I think those are the kinds of things to think about. The nice thing about commissioned work is you're working in the space, so you're sort of refining and your craft in the process. The other stuff is a little bit more of a very kind of compartmentalized kind of thing. But really you have to sort of create an ecosystem, sort of this ecosystem of sustenance, knowing that at the center of it is your creativity, and how do you protect that? And it's hard, but.
But I just want to, before we take the next question, we really want to say something. It's unfair that you have to work and develop craft, but it's a reality. And the reality is you don't get a chance to be mediocre. Your craft has to be at a higher level. That stuff that my mom used to tell me about having to be twice as good. I heard somebody from Brazil yesterday, and they say you got to be 10 times better than the white guy across the street. So you're lucky. You only have to be twice as good, but you have to be good. And there's a way to do that. So and so that's it. We'll take the next question. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. I'm gonna take some from the chat now because we need to get through it a little quickly. This is from Camilo Smith. What was the process like scheduling shooting on a doc focused on your own lives, talking about American Promise?
You want to take that, Joe? Or?
It changed over the years. We did the analysis of the amount of hours we shot per week. and it was only about 2 hours. But the organization and the commitment to shoot consistently and to fight the good fight with the permissions and everything else was pretty enormous. And so early on, it was us with the home camera uh, uh, and begging for money. 3 or 4 years later, they saw the footage, and it became a bigger operation. And so I'm not sure. This is an all-day discussion.
Yeah, in terms of the more nitty-gritty sort of thing, the way we scheduled was sort of improvisational a little bit. So, you know, every month or every 2 months, we would schedule with ourselves with a DP who might spend 2 or 3 days with us, you know, like, you know, morning, part of the evening. And you know, there would be that kind of coverage. So we really focused in a lot on the day-to-day stuff, because it's in those kind of day-to-day stuff that we got some of the more intimate, you know, complicated sort of conversations that were happening just around homework, for example. But that is how we try to schedule, you know, every month. And if there were some events, we would schedule those, but we didn't want the film to be dependent on, you know, these events only. And the beauty of longitudinal films, if you just keep shooting, the longitudinal aspect of it itself is the drama. Like when you're in the edit room and you're juxtaposing our son Idris when he was 5 years old with when he's 15, that's drama. That's drama right there. So yes, we tried to, you know, make sure we covered drama through an observational way, but the editing brought it to a whole other level because of all the material that we had. So, and people thought we had the camera on 24/7. No, that's not the case. Actually, we spent a couple of years not shooting because we were getting resistance from the school and from the other family as well. So, but being able to condense all that is what creates the intensity of the experience for the person watching.
Cool. I'm gonna just get one more from the chat, and then we'll take one more from the hands waving. Just want to add, Camilo Smith, who just asked the last question, hopefully I won't get in trouble for this, is a filmmaker himself doing an incredible film about Houston hip hop, Mexican-American Houston hip hop. So shout out to Camilo Smith. Next question is from John Guest, the illustrious John Guest from Houston's African-American Museum. Go John Guest. His question is, craft development takes time. The fear is that time passes you by. That makes you sometimes rush. What's your experience in managing that fear?
We never manage that. But what we do is we're old. So we develop patience. And that's why we're here. We're telling you that if you want to make it, if you want to realize your dream, it's the tortoise who wins the race every effing time. And so the point is, that is what our ancestors tell us, and that is what we had to learn. That when we ran out of the gate and attempted to do something, every film that we've done has taken almost twice as long. And so we're working on a Nikki Giovanni project, right? We're doing the story of her life. She's almost 80 now. We started that 4 years ago. We thought we'd be done in 2 years. And now we're old enough to say, wow, it's even gonna get better. So we fired our editor and because it wasn't working. And still we say, you know, it's gonna get better. Now we have one of the most amazing editors in the country working on this film. And we think we're gonna have something special.
Yeah, the average independent documentary film, and I imagine it might be the same for independent fiction, takes 5 years to make, you know. I think for me, the managing the rushing is more about managing the rejections. You know, the rejections are what, like, you have something in mind, you know, you want to do it, you're confident, you have faith in what you're doing. You think you can get it done in a certain amount of time, but the barriers that come up are the ones that slow you down. You have no choice. You know, it's almost like you're put in front of an accomplished fact that you have to work around and turn into an opportunity, right? And so me, it's about allowing myself to have the time to be frustrated about the rejection, because I can't help but take it personally, right? You know, it's like, and who do they think they are? All that kind of stuff, just process it and then take a deep breath and then start over again, you know, start over again and working, but allowing for that space of acknowledging, you know, because this is personal stuff. We're passionate. That's why we're doing it, right? So, but that the rejections are important. They're part of the growth process too. And being open to hearing the why, not necessarily taking it in and making the changes, but knowing the why, I think is really important. And I think it's more that than the fear of rushing. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Cool.
I would say, you know, who is managing rejection quite well? Our son. And so he is a guy who watched us over and over. And he's an amazing maker, because he's learned the art of the readjustment. We call it growth mindset in education. And so you have to develop the growth mindset and see the positive in the rejection. And so what I am saying is, and so now he's 30, and he belongs to a collective in Brooklyn where they support each other when they're rejected. And so that collective of Black makers, there are about 100 of them, right, are doing amazing work and are constantly supporting each other. So you can pull in support by building community. And so we're going back to that again, but it works. And it's going to work in the future as it's worked in the past.
Okay, let's do one last question. Maybe this will be a lady's choice. Anybody from the gallery? Oh, I see Ticia, right? Yeah, maybe we can, yeah.
Hi, good morning, or yes, hi everyone. Thank you so very, very much for your work. I'm Letitia Guillory, and my question is, can you speak a little bit about your practice in the sense of how do you manage your multiple projects, you know, and also those ideas that just come in the middle of the night, like, oh my God, I have a new idea. So if you could speak a little bit about that, that'd be awesome.
So Michele is going to sit there and not say anything because, and then when I start talking, she's going to take over. But I'm not going to let that happen this time. So let me say this: how do we manage it? It took a long time to manage that, right? And we have to learn our roles. So one of the things I know what she does well, she knows what I do well. We have to be tolerant of that. We fight often. As you can see, if you've ever watched American, I promise. But I think we've learned the role of our team. We have multiple team members, right? We have someone, we've realized we don't manage money that well. So we have someone who manages the economics, paying people. We have someone who organizes our time. At first, it was easy because we didn't have many time demands, right? But right now, we couldn't exist without a time management person. And that is essential to our survival. And so when you're juggling 2 projects, not a problem. 3 projects, not a problem. But after a while, when they're 10, and that's what we saw was that we needed for our survival. We needed something that's happening now, something's happening 6 months from now, something's happening 2 years from now. And so right now we have about 10 hours of programming on television and cable. And but that is because it was planned years ago. And so what am I saying? I'm saying even with all of that, the basics are craft, patience, where's my list? Emotional resonance and community. And so, and as it's sort of like a weightlifter. You go 5, 10 pounds, you get sore. After you've been doing this a while, you can lift 25 pounds. And that requires a different level of organizational craft, which will come to you. Michelle? Mute.
I'm trying to see how I can be most helpful in terms of the practice on a day-to-day basis. I think time management is the key. It's really the key to kind of what I spoke earlier about being able to carve out the time that you need to either write that treatment, jot down whatever you need to jot down, in the middle of the night that's going to help you later. I try to manage my time as much as possible. I'm not as organized as I wish I could be. And I have to say, it kind of takes a toll. I mean, we don't really have any days off in this, and it's because I am passionate about the work. But it's really like seven days out of the week. So I would say for me, the key is being able to manage my time as much as I can. Right now, we're sort of between people who can help us with the time management, and I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it in terms of my own needing to take time to manage my time so I can have the time to make work. But R&D, it's about, first doing research. We spend a lot of time for us in documentary getting to know the participants that we work with. In that kind of nonfiction space, it's a lot more time, off camera than on camera. That is really key to getting the creative, output at the end of the process. Carving out the time that's needed to write or review treatments that need to be reviewed to get ready for pitching. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think time management is at the crux of all of this, and it's very tedious, but necessary.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Joe. Speaking of time management, it is necessary. We've got some time management stuff we got to work through here, but we're doing all right. We're going to get through it. So this is going to be pretty much coming up, the last part of the workshop, although we will regroup for like 5 minutes at the end. So we're going to go into breakout groups now. And the purpose of these breakout groups are to get general feedback about your ideas. And then folks, that maybe just want to hear about some ideas and share some encouragement, share their thoughts, that's fine. But there are going to be facilitators leading these discussions, and we're really excited to have them. And I would just say, like, community rules, step up, step back, don't hog the space, share the space. This is also confidential. This portion of the workshop will not be recorded. This is a confidential conversation, and everybody just respect everybody else and respect the space. So these, we're going to break out into 5 different breakout rooms. One will be led by Michelle, and one will be led by Joe. So some of you will get a chance to talk to them further, but do not get it twisted. The other people leading the breakout rooms are absolute powerhouses. One of them, Michelle shouted out before, Yaki Smith. Yaki Smith's films have received worldwide acclaim, screening and winning awards at over 100 film festivals, the Directors Guild of America and Student Academy Awards, HBO, Showtime, the city of Buffalo, New York, which proclaimed February 23rd, 2013 as Yaki Smith's Day, and the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, which proclaimed October 6, 2019 as Yaki Smith's Day, have honored him. He is currently an associate professor of film and the associate dean of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the Moody College of Communications at University of Texas at Austin. Variety magazine recently named him one of the best film educators in the world. So we've got one of the best film educators on the planet here with us. We're so, happy and excited that Yaki is joining us. Next, Isaac Yeoman is a director, cinematographer, writer, and producer. He is part of Sony Pictures Incubation Lab and has directed content for Netflix, Marvel, Viacom, Adidas, Airbnb, and more. He will serve as an executive producer on the upcoming DJ Screw biopic. All Screwed Up, a feature film currently under development with Columbia Pictures. Alongside DJ Screw's family, Isaac is simultaneously directing the upcoming feature unscripted documentary, Chopped and Screwed, The Final Mixtape. Yeoman is also a 7-time multi-platinum Grammy-nominated music producer and Houston native. Shout out to Isaac. We're so happy that he's with us and, you know, so grateful. Lastly, but certainly not least, is Martin Jones, a 2-time Emmy Award nominated producer, creative innovator, and executive who specializes in producing, directing diverse teams of talented artists and technicians to create memorable and entertaining multimedia content. He is the studio director for Austin Studios, which is operated by the Austin Film Society, one of the nation's leading nonprofits. We're also gonna have some admin people in the room, just FYI, just to make sure everything's going okay, keep track of time. That will be myself, Michael Robinson from Houston Cinema Arts Society, Lawrence Unger from the Houston Cinema Arts Society, and Erica, and I believe the last person is Max, if I have that right, from Austin. So we're gonna now go into our breakout rooms and share ideas, and you guys are gonna have the most incredible filmmakers to get feedback from. So, you know, please enjoy and take advantage.
Our new headquarters, we have our grand opening this year.
Oh, okay, nice. For some reason, I can't access my camera here. Let me see, settings, privacy. I gotta go to my settings.